center rail job, center shoe we call it. You can see that the layout's already done, the shoe's installed, and we need a miter nest turn around the wall. So this rail right here has been cut into the bottom to fit the post, and we cut the top end in at 30 degrees. You can see there's a miter on the top end. And we're going to show you the first piece to cut so you can test how to fit that. And that's a little rail return at 30 degrees. So we're going to take a rail, remove our saw to 30 degrees. Make our first cut. Now we're going to measure 6 1/4. Got a pencil? Thank you. We're measuring from this cut end in 6 1/4. We'll put a mark and then we'll make another cut. Measure 6 1/4. Right there. So now we have our return piece. We're going to look up here. We're going to test fit this. Come on up. So if you look down here, what we want is 1.5 inches right there. We need enough clearance here to pass our hand clearance of 1.5 inches. So right now we don't have that. So we need to cut this rail back to get our 1.5 inch clearance. Right now we have a 1/2 inch, maybe 3/8. So we need to come 1 inch back. We'll go inch and you can be a little bit over. So we got about 3/8. So we're gonna go 1.25 inches back. So we're gonna measure 1.25 inches back here. And we're gonna cut this rail back. Now we'll look again. Now if we were to measure, looking down on here, so we're about 1.25 inches, and these you'll want to look straight down because even though up here you're going to be wider, you got to check your narrowest point. So you kind of have to stick your tape on there and sight down. So we're 1.25 inches now, so we take another 1/4 inch off. Now we put our tape on here. Okay, so now we passed just over 1.5 inches, which is what we need for clearance. So now we want to make sure that this rail is 1.5 inches off this wall. So we measured this. That's a typical dimension, that 6 1/4 that we cut here. It will vary depending on how wide the wall is. The wider the wall, the longer this piece needs to be. But a standard 2x4 wall is usually 6 1/4. So now we have to stick another piece on here, and we can just kind of hold that on there with our hands, and we have to make sure that we're clear 1.5 inches. So we're 1 inch in 5/8, so we're good. So we know that this dimension is good because we have our clearance here for our handrail. We know that we've got our 1.5 inches here. So now we can put this together, these two pieces together, and then we'll cut in this top piece to the length the top piece needs to be. Okay, so we're going to talk about the layout of a rake, especially one with an S-turn in it. The way you start that out is come off the wall. We usually go about 4 inches off the wall. So if you stick your tape measure and your torpedo level and level it up and come out to 4 inches, and then you put a mark right there. As you can see, he's already got the layout done, but we're just showing how you get that started. So now you're 4 inches off the wall. You can't measure down like this because that doesn't work. You have to measure plumb across or level across. So that's why you use this level. And then each space needs to be approximately 4 1/4 max. So if you put your tape on that mark that you previously did, and then run across to 4 1/4, and then make another mark. And now you can measure this way. So although it's 4 1/4 horizontally, if we measure the angle, it's 5 3/16. So now you take that 5 3/16 and run that line all the way down to the end. Now at the bottom, we want to remember that you can't be more than about 3 1/2 inches from the post down here, because the post gets so skinny right here. If you have a spindle that's 4 inches off of here, by the time you get into this area, you'll be out of code. So if you keep yourself at about 3 1/2, 3 1/4 inches right here, that means by the time you get into here, now you'll be close to 4 inches, but you won't get out of code. So you can see here he's had to make some adjustments. So he was coming down 5 3/16, 5 3/16. We got to here, it was just a little bit long. So then he worked his way back, got 5 inches. So now he moved 5 inches, 5 inches, 5 inches, and then he came back to his line. So what that means is that this spacing is just slightly closer than what these are spaced out at, but it's close enough that you don't notice the difference between the two. And so if you get down to the bottom, if you're just a little off, you can adjust that spacing just a little bit and start working your way back. As you can see, if you want to come closer, you see there was his first adjustment, and then the next one got closer, and then the next one got closer, and by the time he hit his 4th space, he was back to his original line. So those are the only spindles that he had to adjust. From there on back, he left those the same. Now we're going to show you how to transfer that layout onto your rail, which is over here. After you cut your rail in, you can lay it right on top of your pony wall, and you can see all the lines where your spindles are going to move. This rail is going to end up going straight up. So you put a mark in each one of those spindles, then you flip this over, you transfer that mark across so that you know where each one of those spindles are, and then you mark a center line so you can drill your holes. And this particular one gets wrought iron spindles, so we're going to mortise a 1/2 inch square hole inside. So you have to flip this rail over. Now you can see your vertical cut on the end. So this is plumb. Now we flipped it end over end to get there, but all these holes now we can drill straight down into the rail, and they'll all be plumb just as if it were hanging up in the air. And if you put a couple clamps on here, you put one down here, and we'll stick one on the top. That holds that rail in place so it doesn't move out of the way while you start to drill. Now that we've got all the layout done, we start on the center of that hole. Roll your bit up to perfectly plumb. And drill down in to about where the collar on the speed bit stops. So you just watch that edge as you drill down to make sure you don't go through the top. Just like that. All right. So, I always hit this back end. I always take this round off first. So I kind of come in this way, which makes the hole just a little bit bigger, which makes it a little easier for your spindles to go up inside. And then I cut the front edge off as well, and then I come back in and cut it straight down. So that gives us just a little bit of play at that front edge, which is why I come in that way, so that when you try to push those spindles up in, you don't have to fight them as much. So it always starts on this back edge, square it up, and cut that round off. No, I'm not going in plumb, so I'm actually cutting a little more that way I need to, but that helps so when I go in straight, what happens if you're too close to this front edge, it blows that front edge out, and you end up chipping on the front edge of all these. So you don't want to be so far onto this front edge that it does that, which is why I come back that way on the front side and the back side. Once I have that done, then I come in, straighten up, go down. And that little bit of play on the front edge right there makes it that much easier to get your spindles up and in. So once you've got all your holes all mortised out, you can see all this crap down inside the holes. Well, that's going to make it difficult to get all your spindles up inside. So what you want to do is clean that out. So you take your drill bit, kind of clean out all that crap that's inside there. Which is way easier to do now while it's down here than when it's up in the air. Once you clean that out, you'll want to get your sander out and sand the bottom of this rail. You want to get all that sanding and everything done before you flip the rail over, so you don't have to deal with trying to do all that upside down. So now we'll grab a sander, we'll sand all this. Now we can put our rail in the air without having to worry about that. Yeah. Okay. So we talked about an S-turn. We brought this outside in the sun so the glue will dry fast. Out here it only takes about 5 minutes to dry. So you take the glue, spread it on there. Set it on your rail. Hold it for about 30-45 seconds, putting pressure on it. So now you just leave that for about 5 minutes. Go do something else inside. When you come out, that glue will be stuck, and you put the screw in there, and your joint's not going to move around on you. We're going to mortise out the bottom of this it's called center shoe, and show you it's a little bit different than we do on the rail. For a couple reasons, we want this to be a little tighter. This is the most visible portion of the mortise. The underside of the rail you don't see as much, so we wanted to get a little bit of play in the up rail so we can get those spindles up and get them to slide in. This bottom one, we want to be really tight so when we drop those spindles in and it looks nice and clean around there. So we do the same, we start the same, we come on the back of this hole, we true up the back of that hole, then we just level it straight up, drop it straight down. You want it to come down to about 1/8 of an inch off the top of this edge. You want from that to where it's in deep about 3/8, so that after you drive the spindles up in, you drop them down, they go down 3/8 of an inch. So we'll do another one. Same thing, true it up nice and square, right off the back of the hole, come straight in, then level it up. If you ever see that the bit's starting to slip and it blows out the front of this, you want to stop and true up your bit, because if you keep going, it's going to blow out the front side. So you always just take it nice and easy, not too fast. Closer and you'll see when you drill these holes, you're drilling down with your 1/2 inch drill bit, and sometimes it will catch an edge, especially on oak, and rip out a little piece of that. So when you get a little piece of that ripped out, you want to make sure to save that. You can see I got 3 of them here, and you want to glue those back in. If you don't, then it becomes a big deal, but if you save these, it's easy fix, no worry. So you just throw a little glue on there, and you stick your piece back in there. Now you've got that. It's the exact same piece of wood. The grain matches and it stays in there. You leave that for 30-45 seconds and let it dry. Then you'll sand this, and then you can just take your razor blade and cut that off so that it's nice and square. You can see we got a couple more. So now those get glued in place, sanded up, and it's like they were never there. But if you don't do that, you end up with a big gouge, and you gotta fill it with putty or whatever you try and cover it with, and you're always gonna see that. So the best case scenario is just sand a piece of wood, glue it right back in where it came out. We've laid out our rail, we've drilled and mortised the rail, we've drilled and mortised the cap. So now we can put this rail up in the air. We need to cut in the rest of our S-turn, which is going to be easier to do right here on the ground. Sometimes you do it in the air, sometimes you do it on the ground. This one will show you how to do it on the ground. So we want to get a rough measurement first from this point of our S-turn up to the top, so we can get a close idea of where that is going to end up. So we're going to measure from here. So, got 122 inches. You'd like to cut it a little long first. So we got 30 degree. All S-turns are always 30 degree. 30, 30, 30. So, same thing, cut it at 30 degrees. And make sure that these cuts go the same direction. So, this one is mitered in, the other one's mitered in. If you cut the other one mitered wrong, then you go the wrong way. So they got to miter into each other like that. I like to cut the end return out of the same material so that that grain's going to match. What are those, 4.5?
Yes.
Yeah. This has to be parallel to what the other piece is down there. As you can see, we're running about 3 inches too long. We cut 3 inches off of here. Should put us in the right place. Pretty close. Looks like it needs to come down just a smidgen. So we can actually put this together and then hang it up in the air. We may just need to trim that just a little bit. Find it. Got the rail end set at 37 inches, and we want to check our wall mount rail. We put in this rail stand, and we're able to adjust it for the right height so that we're parallel with the curb. Now we want to check upstairs, see if we're coming in the same height. So 37 inches will be right at the top of the wall. We'll set that in our rail right here. We'll be all right on the money. So it ends up right where it's supposed to. Everything fits the way it's supposed to. Running parallel. Now you can, if you had a wall mount bracket, you could mount that wall mount bracket exactly to that height to hold this in where it's supposed to. It's already cut in. You can go outside, glue this on, just like we did the other one. Then screw this one in, and then hang this up on your wall mount bracket, wherever your stud is.
Screw that bottom one in.
And then screw the bottom one in. There you go.